Elon Musk enters SpaceX's secret vault. The Soviet space files he finds shock the world. The late February rain hammered against the windows of SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California. Elon Musk sat in his office, staring at an old, yellowed envelope that had arrived that morning. His desk was cluttered with rocket designs and Mars colonization plans, but this single envelope demanded all his attention. "Sir?" His assistant Sarah knocked gently on the door. "Your 8 p.m. meeting with the engineering team." "Cancel it," Elon said, not looking up. "Cancel everything for tonight." Sarah hesitated. "Even the board call about the Starship progress, especially that." He finally looked up. Dark circles under his eyes. "Something's come up." The envelope had arrived in a package of documents from their recent acquisition, a small Ukrainian rocket manufacturer called Yuzhnoye Design Bureau. Most people thought he'd bought it for the patents. They were wrong. His phone buzzed. Another text from the mysterious number. "Did you receive it? Time is running out." Elon picked up the envelope again. Inside was a single key and a set of coordinates that pointed to somewhere in the SpaceX facility. He'd spent weeks trying to verify their authenticity, and now he was sure these were genuine Soviet Terra documents. "Tom," he called out to his head of security, who was always within earshot, "I need the building cleared by midnight. Essential personnel only." Tom stepped into the office, frowning. "Sir, we have 3 critical tests running in the labs. Move them to tomorrow." Elon stood up, his decision made. "And get me everything we have on the original building blueprints from before we bought it." As the hours ticked by, the facility slowly emptied. The rain continued its relentless drumming, creating an eerie atmosphere in the increasingly vacant building. Elon spent the time poring over old blueprints, comparing them to modern scans. "You're not going to believe this," Tom said, returning with a stack of papers. "I found something in the original Hughes aircraft documents from the 1960s. There's a discrepancy in the basement square footage. About 1,000 square feet just doesn't add up." Ellen's heart raced. "Show me." They spread the blueprints across his desk. Tom pointed to a section of the basement. "See these walls? They're listed as load-bearing, but according to the structural plans, they're not." Elon finished. "They're not holding anything up at all." At 11:30 p.m., Elon stood in the basement, Tom at his side with a high-powered flashlight. The basement was mainly used for storage now. Old rocket parts and prototype equipment gathered dust in the corners. "This doesn't feel right," Tom muttered, his security training making him uneasy. "We should bring in a team, do this properly." "No. Teams," Elon said firmly. "Whatever's down here, it stayed hidden for a reason." They moved along the wall, measuring, tapping, looking for any sign of what the coordinates might be pointing to. The sound of their footsteps echoed in the empty space. "Sir," Tom called out suddenly, "look at this." He was pointing at what appeared to be a normal section of wall, but upon closer inspection, the concrete pattern was slightly different. Elon ran his fingers along the edge, feeling for any abnormality. "The key," he muttered, pulling it from his pocket. The metal was old, unlike anything he'd seen before. Soviet manufacturing had its own distinct style, and this key carried that signature. "Mr. Musk," Tom said urgently, "we should really think about this. Once we open whatever this is, there's no going back." Elon paused, the key hovering near the wall. The weight of the moment pressed down on him. 20 years of building SpaceX, of pushing humanity toward the stars, had somehow led to this moment. The Ukrainian engineer's words echoed in his mind. His last words before passing away just days after the acquisition. The truth. The old man had whispered, "It's been waiting. In the walls, in the shadows. Find it." His phone buzzed again. Another message. "They know you're close. Be careful." "Tom," Elon said, his voice steady despite his racing heart. "Whatever we find here, it stays between us, at least for now." Tom nodded grimly, his hand instinctively moving to his concealed weapon. Elon began feeling along the wall more systematically now, looking for any indication of where the key might fit. After several tense minutes, his fingers found it. A small, almost invisible seam in the concrete. "Here," he breathed. The key slid in with surprising ease. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a sound like escaping air, a section of the wall shifted slightly. "Stand back," Tom ordered, moving in front of Elon. They watched as decades-old mechanisms groaned to life. The false wall panel slid back and to the side, revealing a heavy steel door with Cyrillic lettering etched into its surface. The air that escaped was stale, carrying the weight of secrets kept too long. Tom's flashlight beam revealed a sophisticated locking mechanism, far more advanced than anything from the supposed era of its installation. "What does it say?" Tom asked, pointing to the Cyrillic text. Elon squinted at the letters. His Russian was rusty, but he could make it out. "Project Zvezda Archive. Authorized personnel only. Zvezda." "That means star," Tom noted. "The Soviet star program." Elon nodded. "But this is impossible. This facility was Hughes' aircraft. American soil. How did they?" His voice trailed off as he noticed something else. Fresh marks around the door handle. "Someone had been here recently." "Tom," he said quietly, "check the security logs for the past month. Every entry to the basement level. Already on it," Tom replied, pulling out his phone. "Sir, there's something else you should see." He pointed his flashlight at the floor. There, partially visible, were footprints in the dust leading away. From the door, Ellen's phone buzzed one final time. "You're not the first to look, but you must be the last to find." The implications hit him like a physical force. This wasn't just about finding old Soviet space secrets. Someone else was involved. Someone who had been here very recently. "We need to open it," Elon decided. Now, the handle turned with surprising ease. The door swung open with a low groan, revealing a room that shouldn't exist. Not here. Not under an American aerospace facility. Row after row of metal filing cabinets stretched into the darkness. The air was thick with decades of silence. But it was the far wall that caught their attention. A massive Soviet Terra mural of the cosmos. Stars and planets painted in fading red and gold. "My God," Tom whispered. Elon stepped forward, his flashlight beam dancing across the filing cabinets. Each one was labeled meticulously in Cyrillic, but one cabinet stood out, its surface clean. "The dust recently disturbed. Someone's been accessing these files," Tom said. Stating the obvious, Elon moved toward the clean cabinet, his heart pounding so hard he could hear it in his ears. This was it. Whatever had brought him here, whatever the Ukrainian engineer had died trying to tell him. It was in this room. As he reached for the cabinet drawer, Tom's radio crackled to life, making them both jump. "Sir," a voice came through. "We have movement on the perimeter. Multiple vehicles approaching the facility." Tom grabbed Ellen's arm. "We need to go now." But Elon pulled away, yanking open the drawer. Inside, folders were arranged with military precision, and on top, as if left there deliberately, was a single file with a red star stamped on its cover. His hands trembling slightly, Elon opened it. The first page made his blood run cold. The first page was a photograph, crystal clear despite its age. It showed what appeared to be a spacecraft, but unlike anything in any known space program. The date stamp read 1959. "This is impossible," Elon muttered. "In 59, we could barely get satellites into orbit. This is something else, Mr. Musk," Tom urged, his radio crackling with more updates about approaching vehicles. "We're running out of time." Elon quickly flipped through the file. Each page seemed more incredible than the last. Technical diagrams of propulsion systems that defied current physics, test results that couldn't be real, and more photographs, each one more impossible than the last. "We need to document this," Elon said, pulling out his phone. "No photos," a voice said from the darkness. Both men spun around. Tom drew his weapon in one fluid motion, pointing it toward the voice. His flashlight beam revealed an elderly man standing in the corner, his hands raised slightly. "Dr. Volkov?" Elon gasped, recognizing the former Soviet scientist who had consulted for SpaceX years ago. "What are you doing here?" The old man stepped forward, his face grave. "The same thing as you, Mr. Musk, looking for truth. But you must understand, there are people coming who would kill for what's in that room." Tom's radio crackled again. "Sir, Multiple armed individuals approaching the south entrance. "How did you get in here?" Tom demanded, his gun still trained on Volkov. The old man smiled sadly. "I helped build this room, young man, in 1968, when this was still Hughes aircraft." He turned to Elon. "You think the Cold War was just about missiles and moon landings? There was so much more. Both sides, we found things we couldn't explain." Elon's mind was racing. "The Ukrainian engineer who sent me here." Dmitry, Volkov nodded. "My old friend. He died trying to get this information to you. He believed you were the only one who would know what to do with it." The sound of doors opening somewhere above them echoed through the basement. "Mr. Musk," Tom said. "Urgently, we need to move. Now." "Take only that file," Volkov said, pointing to the one in Elon's hands. "The rest, it's all connected. They'll find it anyway. But that file, that's the key to everything." "Come with us," Elon said, tucking the file into his jacket. Volkov shook his head. "I'm too old to run. Go, I'll buy you time. Just remember, what you're holding changes everything we thought we knew about humanity's place in the cosmos." The sound of footsteps was getting closer. "The back exit," Tom said, grabbing Elon's arm. Through the maintenance tunnel, as they hurried toward the hidden exit, Elon looked back one last time. Volkov stood in the vault doorway, his silhouette framed by the dim emergency lights, looking every bit like the guardian of secrets he'd been for over 50 years. They made it to Tom's security vehicle just as the first black SUVs pulled into the SpaceX's parking lot. As they drove away, Elon could see figures in tactical gear rushing into the building. "Call facility security," Elon ordered. "Tell them to cooperate fully with whoever those people are. Standard security audit protocol." "And Dr. Volkov," Tom asked, steering them onto the highway. Elon looked down at the file in his hands. He knew what he was doing. "He's been guarding these secrets longer than I've been alive." As the rain continued to pour, they drove through the Los Angeles night, the weight of what they'd discovered pressing down on them. Elon's phone had gone. Dead, not just powered down, but completely dead, as if something had fried its circuits. "Where to?" Tom asked. Elon stared at the file in his hands, his mind already racing with the implications of what he'd seen. "My private office in Bel Air. We need to go through this properly." "And Tom, send a message to the board. Tell them I'm canceling all appointments for the next 48 hours. As they drove through the rain-slicked streets, Elon couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. The Ukrainian engineer's last words made sense now. "Find the door, open it. The world needs to know." But as he thought about the photographs he'd seen, the impossible technical diagrams, he wondered if the world was ready for what he'd found. In his pocket, the key to the vault seemed to grow heavier with each passing mile. Whatever happened next would change everything, not just for him, not just for SpaceX, but for all of humanity. As the lights of Los Angeles blurred past the car windows, Elon Musk knew that nothing would ever be the same again. The first chapter of this incredible journey was ending, but the real story was just beginning. In his hands, he held proof of something that would shake the foundations of human history. And somewhere behind them, in a hidden vault beneath SpaceX, an old Soviet scientist faced the very people who had spent decades keeping these secrets buried. The truth about humanity's place in the cosmos was finally about to come to light, and Elon Musk found himself at the center of what might be the most important discovery in human history. The rain had finally stopped by the time Elon and Tom reached the private office in Bel Air. The modern building sat perched on a hillside, its glass walls now reflecting the first hints of dawn. Security cameras tracked their movement as they made their way inside. Both men tense and watchful. "Sweep the office," Elon ordered, his voice hoarse from the night's events. Tom moved methodically through the space, checking for any signs of intrusion or surveillance. Elon stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, the file clutched in his hands, watching the city lights flicker in the distance. "Clear," Tom finally announced. "But sir, we need to talk about what happened back there." Elon nodded, moving to his desk. The polished surface was empty except for a single laptop and a framed photo of the first Falcon 1 launch. He placed the file down carefully, as if it might disappear at any moment. Those men who showed up, Tom continued, they weren't regular government agents. Their tactics, their equipment, they were something else. Call Sarah, Elon said, not taking his eyes off the file. Have her cancel everything. No calls, no meetings. Total blackout. As Tom made the call, Elon finally opened the file again. In the proper lighting of his office, the contents were even more astonishing then. They had appeared in the vault. My God, he whispered, spreading the documents across his desk. The first section contained technical specifications for a propulsion system that seemed to defy the laws of physics. As he understood them, the drawings were incredibly detailed, annotated in both Russian and what appeared to be another, unknown language. Sir, Tom said, finishing his call, Sarah's handling the cancellations. But there's something else. Dr. Volkov. He's gone. Elon looked up sharply. Gone. The security team at the facility says when those men entered the vault, they found it empty. No sign of him. A moment of silence filled the room as both men contemplated the implications. The old scientist had simply vanished. Elon turned back to the documents, his hands trembling slightly as he reached for what looked like a research report. The date at the top read October 17, 1959. Listen to this, he said, beginning to read aloud. Project Zvezda Report Number 127 Classification. Above top secret subject. Anomalous propulsion system recovery object recovered from the Tunguska site. Continues to defy our understanding. Initial tests confirm the material composition includes elements not found on the periodic table. The propulsion system appears to utilize principles of quantum field manipulation beyond our current theoretical framework. Tunguska, Tom interrupted. The explosion in Siberia. That was in 1908. Exactly, Elon said, his voice tense with excitement. Everyone thought it was a meteor impact, but according to this, he shuffled through more papers, finding another document. The Soviets found something in the impact zone, something they kept hidden for decades. The sound of Ellen's phone ringing made them both jump. The screen showed an unknown number. Put it on speaker, Tom advised, his hand near his weapon. Elon answered. There was static on the line. Then a familiar voice, Mr. Musk. It was Dr. Volkov. Where are you? Elon demanded. Are you safe? That doesn't matter now, the old scientist replied. His voice sounded distant, distorted. Listen carefully. In the file, there's a photograph marked K-19 incident. Find it. Elon quickly shuffled through the papers until he found it. A black and white photograph of what appeared to be a Soviet submarine surfaced in rough seas. But it was what was hovering above the submarine that made his breath catch. I see it, he said. That wasn't the only encounter, Volkov continued. Both sides had them, the Americans, the Soviets. We all agreed to keep it quiet. The world wasn't ready. Ready for what? Elon asked. But the line was already breaking up. Find Korolev's notes, last page. The connection dissolved into static, then silence. Tom was already pulling up information on his tablet. K-19 was a Soviet nuclear submarine that had a radiation leak in 1961. The official story was a cover. Elon finished, still staring at the photograph. The object above the submarine was like nothing he'd ever seen. A perfect disk, its surface seemingly rippling despite the stillness of the photograph. He dug deeper into the file, looking for anything related to Korolev, the famous Soviet rocket engineer. Near the bottom, he found several pages of handwritten notes in Russian. Can you read it? Tom asked. Elon squinted at the text. Some of it. Korolev. He knew. The Soviet space program wasn't just about beating the Americans to space. They were trying to reverse engineer something. The sound of a helicopter passing overhead drew their attention. Tom moved to the windows, scanning the sky. Just news chopper. He reported, but we should move to a more secure location. Elon barely heard him. He was completely absorbed in the documents now, his mind racing as he pieced together the incredible story they told. The Soviets hadn't just been competing with NASA. They'd been preparing for something else entirely. The space race had been a cover, a way to develop technology they'd discovered without revealing its true source. Tom He said suddenly, "Look at these test results, the dates, the energy readings. This is why they were so far ahead in the early years. They had help. Help." Tom moved back to the desk. From who? Before Elon could answer. His laptop screen flickered to life on its own. Text began appearing. Secure channel initiated classification. Omega Mr. Musk, stop reading. You don't know what you're dealing with. End this now. Tom immediately moved to disconnect the laptop, but Elon stopped him. "No," he said, reaching for the keyboard. "Let's see who our friends are." He typed, "Who is this?" The response came quickly. "Someone who has kept these secrets for longer than you've been alive. The technology in those files, it's not meant for the public." Elon felt a surge of anger. The public deserves to know. This changes everything. Our understanding of physics, of human history. Some truths are too dangerous. You have 12 hours to return the files. After that, we can't guarantee your safety. The screen went black. Elon sat back in his chair, his mind racing. The threat was clear, but something else bothered him. They said we can't guarantee your safety, not we will harm you. They're not threatening us directly. They're warning us about something else. Tom finished the thought. Elon turned back to the files, flipping through until he found what he was looking for, a series of photographs taken from orbit in 1967. The images were remarkably clear for their age, showing what appeared to be artificial structures on the far side of the moon. "My God," Tom breathed, looking over his shoulder. "Is this real?" According to these notes, both the Americans and Soviets knew. They'd been watching us, studying us, the whole space race. It was a test. A sharp knock at the door made them both freeze. Tom drew his weapon, moving silently to the entrance. "Mr. Musk?" A familiar voice called out. "It's Sarah." Tom checked the security camera feed on his phone, then nodded. Elon unlocked the door. Sarah burst in, her face pale. "Sir, you need to see this." She held up her tablet, showing a news feed. The headline read, "Breaking, unexplained phenomena detected in Earth's orbit. Multiple space agencies report anomalous readings." It's starting. Elon muttered, "They know we found the files. They're making themselves known." Tom looked between them, confused. "They? Who's they?" But Elon was already gathering the documents, his movements urgent but precise. "We need to go public. Now, before they can stop us." "Sir," Sarah interjected, "there's more. Dr. Volkov, they found him." Ellen's head snapped up. "Where?" "Star City, Russia." He just walked into the Roscosmos headquarters, demanding to speak to their director. "He's talking about something called Project Zvezda and, sir, he's asking for you by name." The implications hit Elon like a physical force. Volkov had somehow made it to Russia in a matter of hours, an impossible journey in less. "The technology in these files," he said slowly, "it's not just theoretical. They've been using it all this time, right under our noses." He looked out the window at the brightening sky, wondering what else was up there, watching, waiting. The truth about humanity's place in the cosmos was about to change forever, and he held the proof in his hands. "Sarah," he said, his decision made, "get me a secure line to the White House. And Tom, prepare the jet. We're going to Russia." As his team sprang into action, Elon took one last look at the photograph of the K-19 incident. The disc-shaped object seemed to shimmer on the paper, as if holding secrets still untold. The next few hours would determine whether humanity was ready for the truth, all of it. The space race hadn't been about reaching the stars. It had been about preparing for what was already here. And now, decades of secrecy were about to come crashing down. The next few hours passed in a blur of activity. Ellen's private jet was being prepared at a small airfield outside Los Angeles, while Sarah worked frantically to establish secure communications. "Sir," she called out, covering her phone's microphone, "the White House is stonewalling. They're saying the president is unavailable for unscheduled calls." Elon wasn't surprised. He was still poring over the files, each page revealing new impossibilities. "Keep trying. Go through the NASA administrator if you have to." Tom entered the office, his face grim. "We've got company." 3 black SUVs just parked down the street, same type as at SpaceX. Through the windows, they could see the vehicles, their tinted windows revealing nothing about their occupants. The morning sun glinted off their polished surfaces. "How long?" "Until the jet's ready," Elon asked, carefully returning the documents to their file. 20 minutes. Tom replied, "But we'll never make it to the airfield if those guys are who I think they are." A smile played across Ellen's face. "Who said we're taking the road?" He pressed a button under his desk, and a hidden panel in the wall slid open, revealing a small elevator. Tom's eyes widened. "After the first kidnapping attempt in 2018, I had some modifications made to the house." Elon explained, "This leads to a tunnel. There's a car waiting below." Sarah looked up from her phone. "Sir, I've got something. A message from Roscosmos. Marked urgent." She handed him her tablet. The message was brief. "To E. Musk from Director. Roscosmos Ray. Dr. Volkov speaks of Tunguska. Of things we tried to forget. Come quickly. Some doors, once opened, cannot be closed. Coordinates attached." "Sir," Tom interjected, "those SUVs are moving. They're coming up the drive." Elon made his decision. "Sarah, you take the front entrance. Buy us time. Tell them I'm in a virtual meeting. Can't be disturbed. Tom, you're with me." As Sarah moved to intercept their uninvited guests, Elon and Tom entered the elevator. The descent was quick and silent. The tunnel below was well lit and spotlessly clean. "A Tesla, of course," Tom commented, seeing the black Model X waiting for them. "Did you expect anything else?" Elon managed a tight smile as they got in. The tunnel stretched ahead of them, curving gently downward. As they drove, Ellen's mind returned to the photographs he'd seen. One in particular haunted him, a series of symbols, found etched into the recovered Tunguska material, symbols that, according to Korolov's notes, matched ancient petroglyphs found in caves across Siberia. "They've been watching us for thousands of years," he murmured. "Sir?" Tom glanced over from the driver's seat. "The Soviets didn't just find wreckage at Tunguska." Elon explained. "They found proof that we weren't alone, that we'd never been alone. And both sides, the US and USSR, they knew. The whole Cold War, it was a cover story." His phone buzzed, a message from Sarah. "Men in suits here, showing CIA credentials. Very insistent on speaking with you." "How long to the airfield?" Elon asked. 10 minutes through the tunnel," Tom replied. "But sir, if these really are CIA, they're not CIA." Elon cut him off. "Think about it. The technology in these files, it changes everything. Physics, energy production, space travel. You think any government agency would let that stay hidden?" The tunnel ended at a nondescript warehouse. As they emerged into the morning light, they could see Ellen's jet waiting on a private runway. "Sir," a voice called out. They turned to see Dr. Wong, one of SpaceX's top propulsion engineers, running toward them. "The files. The ones you found. I need to show you something." Elon hesitated. They hadn't told anyone about the vault or its contents. "How did you?" "Because I've seen them before," Wong interrupted. 20 years ago, in a facility in China. The same diagrams, the same impossible technology." She pulled out her phone, showing them a photo. This was taken by the Chinese space program in 1973. The image showed the same disc-shaped object they'd seen in the K-19 photograph. A sudden rumbling filled the air. They looked up to see 3 black helicopters approaching from the direction of the city. "They're not going to let us leave," Tom said, his hand moving to his weapon. "Yes, they will," Elon replied calmly, "because they know what happens next." "What's already happening?" He pointed to his phone, which was lighting up with notifications. News alerts were pouring in, unexplained astronomical phenomena reported worldwide. Multiple space agencies report unusual activity in Earth orbit. Global satellite networks experiencing unexplained interruptions. "They're here," Dr. Wong whispered. "Looking at the sky, aren't they? They know we found the files. The helicopters were getting closer." Tom moved to hurry them toward the jet, but Elon held up his hand. "Wait," he said. The morning sky suddenly seemed to ripple, like heat waves over hot asphalt. The helicopters stopped, hovering in place as if frozen. Ellen's phone rang. The screen showed a single word, "Zvezda." He answered, putting it on speaker. Dr. Volkov's voice came through, clearer than before. "Mr. Musk, Did you understand what you found? Yes, Elon replied, his eyes still on the frozen helicopters. The Soviets didn't just find wreckage at Tunguska. They made contact, not just the Soviets. Volkov said, every spacefaring nation. We all found pieces of the puzzle, but no one had the courage to tell the world. We thought we weren't ready, and now they're done waiting. Look at the files again, Mr. Musk, the last page. The one we added just before Dmitry sent you the key. Elon opened the file with trembling hands. The final page was different from the others, modern paper, recent ink. It contained a single sentence in English. When you find this, they will return. The question is, are we finally ready to join them? The sky rippled again. The helicopters suddenly resumed their movement, but they were turning away, retreating back toward the city. Get to Moscow, Volkov said. What you have is only the beginning, the real secret. It's waiting in Star City. The line went dead. Elon looked at Tom and Dr. Wong, then at the file in his hands. 20 years of pushing humanity toward the stars. And now he understood why it had felt so urgent, so necessary. We weren't reaching for the stars. They were reaching for us. Let's go, he said, moving toward the jet. It's time the world knew the truth. As they boarded the aircraft, the morning sun caught something in the sky. A brief flash of metal, there and gone too fast to track. The game of secrets that had started in 1908 in the forests of Tunguska was finally coming to an end, and Elon Musk held the key to it all. The private jet cut through the early morning sky, leaving Los Angeles far behind. Elon sat by the window, the file open on the table before him, while Tom maintained constant communication with their ground team. Dr. Wong had insisted on joining them, her expertise in propulsion systems potentially crucial for what lay ahead. Sarah's gone dark, Tom reported, lowering his phone. No contact for the past hour. Elon looked up from the documents. Is she safe? Last message indicated she got away clean. Said she'd meet us in Moscow through a different route. Dr. Wong leaned forward, her eyes fixed on the technical diagrams spread across the table. These propulsion calculations, they're not just advanced. They're impossible, at least by our current understanding of physics. That's what caught my attention too, Elon replied. Look at the power output ratios. They're achieving near-perfect energy conversion with zero waste heat. The jet-secure phone line buzzed. Tom checked the caller ID and nodded to Elon. Mr. Musk, a familiar voice came through the speaker. It was the NASA administrator. You need to turn that plane around. Now, Elon smiled slightly. Hello, Bill. I'm assuming this isn't a social call. This is bigger than you, bigger than SpaceX. There are protocols in place for this kind of situation. Protocols, Ellen's voice hardened. Like the ones that kept this hidden for 60 years? Tell me, Bill, how many other private space companies have gotten close? How many times have you had to shut them down? Silence filled the line for a moment. It's not that simple, Bill finally responded. The technology you found, there are reasons it was kept secret. The public isn't ready. The public wasn't ready for electricity once, Elon countered. They weren't ready for automobiles or airplanes or the internet. But look what happened when we trusted them with the truth. Dr. Wong suddenly grabbed Ellen's arm, pointing out the window. A sleek military jet was paralleling their course. Too close for comfort. That's a Russian Su-57, Tom said, recognizing the aircraft. How did they find us over the Pacific? The NASA administrator's voice crackled through the speaker again. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Everyone knows you have the files. CIA, FSB, MSS, they're all converging. This isn't just about national security anymore. The Russian fighter jet dipped its wings, a signal. They're not trying to stop us, Elon realized. They're escorting us. His phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. Multiple agents spotted at LAX. They know. Tom showed Elon his tablet. Live news feeds were exploding with strange reports. Global satellite networks experience unprecedented disruptions. Aurora-like phenomena reported worldwide. Astronomical observatories report unusual objects in Earth orbit. It's starting, Dr. Wong whispered. Just like in '73. What happened in '73? Tom asked, She pulled out an old photograph from her bag. It showed a young Chinese scientist standing next to what appeared to be a crashed disc-shaped object. My father was part of the recovery team. They found it in the Gobi Desert. The technology inside, it changed everything, but they could never get it to work. It was like the devices were locked, waiting for something. The plane's satellite phone rang again. This time, it was a number Elon recognized, Roscosmos. Mr. Musk, the voice was heavily accented. Our radar stations are tracking multiple anomalies entering the atmosphere. Whatever you found in those files, it's triggered something. You need to get to Star City immediately. The Russian fighter jet suddenly banked away sharply. Through the windows, they could see why 3 black, triangular aircraft were approaching. Fast. Those aren't any aircraft I recognize, Tom said, his military experience showing in his voice. Because they're not ours, Elon replied quietly, looking at one of the photographs from the file. It showed an identical triangular craft, the image dated 1967. The plane's instruments began to go haywire. The pilot's voice came over the intercom. Trying to maintain calm, "Sir, we're experiencing some unusual electromagnetic interference. All navigation systems are down." Dr. Wang was staring at her tablet, her face pale. The Chinese space station just went dark. Their entire communications network, it's like something's taking control. Ellen's phone lit up with another message, this time from Dr. Volkov. They're awakening. All of it. Everything we found, everything we tried to understand. The signals are being answered. Tom, Elon said urgently, get Sarah on the line. We need to know what happened after we left. But before Tom could dial, all their devices went dead simultaneously. Through the windows, they could see the 3 triangular craft moving into formation around their plane. My God, Dr. Wang breathed. They're not escorting us. They're scanning us. The file on the table suddenly caught everyone's attention. The pages were shifting slightly, as if responding to an unseen force. The strange symbols on the Tunguska diagrams seemed to shimmer. It's the same energy signature, Dr. Wang said, checking a handheld sensor she'd brought from SpaceX. Just like what my father recorded in '73. The pilot's voice came back, "Sir, we're being directed to alter course. Something's taking control of the aircraft systems." Elon looked at the others, then back at the triangular craft flanking them. "Let them, sir." Tom's hand was on his weapon, though they all knew it would be useless. "These aren't the ones we need to worry about," Elon said, pointing to his phone. Before he had died, he'd received one last message from an unknown number. CIA agents at Moscow Airport, FSB units mobilizing. They're trying to stop what's coming. But they don't understand, it's too late. The signal has been sent. Dr. Wang was frantically taking notes, trying to document everything. The electromagnetic readings are off the scale. This is exactly what happened before the Gobi incident. They're not just scanning us, She never finished her sentence. A brilliant light filled the cabin, and for a moment, everything seemed to stop. When their vision cleared, the triangular craft were gone. But something else had changed. Through the windows, they could see Moscow below them. A journey that should have taken hours had happened in an instant. "Impossible," Tom whispered. Ellen's phone suddenly came back to life, along with everyone else's devices. Messages flooded in. NORAD reporting multiple unknown objects entering atmosphere. Chinese space program goes public with historical encounters. Russian Defense Ministry calls emergency meeting. Unexplained phenomena reported at multiple space agencies worldwide, sir, Tom said, checking his tactical feeds. "We've got company." Multiple vehicles converging on the airport. Dr. Wang was still checking her instruments. The energy signature, it's everywhere now. Whatever was in those files, whatever we found. It wasn't just proof of contact. No, Elon agreed, looking at the final pages of the file again. It was an activation key. All those years, all those encounters, they were waiting for someone to put it all together. As their plane began its descent into Moscow, Elon could see vehicles racing toward the airport, some with Russian military markings, others unmarked. The race was on. But as he looked at the strange symbols in the file, at the technical diagrams that defied physics as we knew it, he realized something else. This wasn't just about keeping secrets anymore. It was about what happened when those secrets finally came to light. The landing at Moscow's Vnukovo airport was tense. As soon as the wheels touched down, they could see the chaos unfolding. Military vehicles, black SUVs, and what looked like scientific equipment being rushed across the tarmac. 15 vehicles approaching from the south, Tom reported, checking the plane's external cameras, Russian military, FSB, and something else. Through the windows, they could see men in dark suits running alongside vehicles with unfamiliar insignias. Dr. Wang was still monitoring her instruments, which were showing increasingly erratic readings. The energy signatures are changing, she announced, her voice tense. It's like they're communicating. Ellen's phone buzzed, a message from Dr. Volkov. Don't stop for anyone. Come directly to Star City. They're all awakening now. As the plane taxied to a stop, a familiar face appeared on the runway, Sarah, somehow already in Moscow, standing next to a black Russian government vehicle. How did she? Tom began. The same way we got here so fast, Elon replied, gathering the files. We're not the only ones being helped. The plane's door opened to chaos. The cold Moscow air rushed in, carrying with it the sound of sirens and shouting in multiple languages. Sarah rushed up the stairs. We need to move, she said urgently. CIA teams landed 10 minutes ago. They're trying to secure the perimeter. What happened back in LA? Elon asked as they hurried down the stairs. Sarah's expression was grim. After you left, something activated in the SpaceX's facility. The vault, it's gone. The whole room just disappeared. Dr. Wang's instruments suddenly screamed with activity. Above them, the clouds seemed to ripple, just like they had in Los Angeles. Multiple boogies on radar. A voice crackled over the airport's emergency channel. What the hell are those things? Threw breaks in the clouds. They could see them, the same triangular craft that had escorted their plane. But now there were dozens of them, forming patterns high above Moscow. Get in, Sarah yelled, pointing to the waiting vehicle. As they piled in, Elon could see men in suits running toward them, badges out, shouting for them to stop. But their driver, a stern-faced Russian military officer, was already accelerating away. Colonel Petrov, the man introduced himself briefly. From Star City. Dr. Volkov sent me. The energy readings are going crazy. Dr. Wang reported from the back seat, her eyes glued to her instruments. It's like the whole electromagnetic spectrum is being rewritten. They sped through Moscow's streets, other vehicles clearing a path for them. On buildings and phones around them, emergency alerts were flashing in multiple languages, sir. Tom called out, checking his tablet. SpaceX is reporting similar phenomena at all our facilities. The Starship prototype in Boca Chica, it's responding to some kind of signal. Elon opened the file again, focusing on the technical diagrams. It's the propulsion system, what we've been trying to build. They've been guiding us toward it all along. Colonel Petrov spoke up from the driver's seat. In 1959, Korolev wrote in his private diary about visitors who showed him the future of space travel. Everyone thought he was losing his mind. He wasn't crazy, Dr. Wang said. Look, she pointed. Out the window, above the Moscow skyline, the air itself seemed to be shifting, creating patterns that defied physics. People on the streets had stopped to stare upward, phones recording the impossible sight. Ellen's phone rang, the NASA administrator again. For God's sake, Musk, do you realize what you've done? The signals, they're not just coming from space anymore. Every piece of technology we reverse engineered from them. Everything we built based on their designs, it's all activating. Good, Elon replied simply, and hung up. Colonel Petrov turned onto a private road leading out of Moscow. Star City is 20 minutes away. Dr. Volkov is waiting with something you need to see. But as they sped through the Russian countryside, something caught their attention. The sky ahead was changing color, taking on an otherworldly hue. Multiple contacts, Tom reported, his military training kicking in, coming in fast from the upper atmosphere. Dr. Wang's instruments were going haywire. The energy signatures, they're identical to the Gobi crash, but stronger, much stronger. Elon looked through the file one last time, finding the page with the strange symbols. They seemed to be glowing now, pulsing with an inner light that shouldn't have been possible on paper all this time, he muttered. We thought we were reaching for the stars, but they were reaching back. Sarah finished dot above them. The sky continued to change, and somewhere ahead, Star City waited with its final secrets. The truth that had been hidden since Tunguska was about to be revealed, not just to them, but to the entire world. The chase was nearly over, but the real revelations were just beginning. Star City loomed ahead, its iconic space training facilities silhouetted against the strange, shifting sky. As their vehicle approached the security checkpoint, they could see that the normally quiet complex was buzzing with activity. Something's happening at the museum, Colonel Petrov said, pointing to a crowd gathering outside the Cosmonaut Training Center. Dr. Volkov said to bring you there directly. They pulled up to the building, where a group of distinguished-looking officials in suits and military uniforms waited. Among them stood Dr. Volkov, looking remarkably composed despite the chaos unfolding. Around them, Mr. Musk, he called out as they approached. You made it. Good. There isn't much time. Time for what? Elon asked, clutching the file. Instead of answering, Volkov led them inside the museum. But they didn't stop at the regular exhibits. Instead, he guided them through a hidden door behind a display of Yuri Gagarin's spacesuit. For 60 years, Volkov explained as they descended a spiral staircase, we've been preparing for this moment. Both sides, east and west, we knew it would come eventually. The staircase opened into a vast underground chamber that took their breath away. It was filled with technology that looked decades ahead of anything publicly known. My God, Doctor, Wong whispered, her instruments going crazy. These energy signatures, they're exactly like what you found in the Gobi Desert. Volkov finished. Yes, because they came from the same source. In the center of the chamber stood something impossible, a perfect replica of the disc-shaped craft from the K-19 photographs. We reverse-engineered what we could, Volkov explained, but most of it remained beyond our understanding. It was like trying to give a smartphone to a medieval peasant. Suddenly, all their phones buzzed simultaneously. Emergency alerts were pouring in from around the world. Unknown objects appearing over major cities. Global communications networks experiencing widespread disruptions. Space agencies worldwide report unprecedented phenomena. It's time, Volkov said, moving toward a large screen at one end of the chamber. Mr. Musk, the file please. As Elon handed over the documents, the screen came to life, showing feeds from space agencies around the world. The images were extraordinary, fleets of objects, similar to what they'd seen over Moscow, appearing. Information around Earth. Dr. Volkov, a voice called out. They turned to see the director of Roscosmos hurrying toward them, followed by several other officials. The Americans are here, indeed. They could hear commotion from above. Tom moved to secure the entrance, but Volkov waved him off. Let them come, he said calmly. They need to be here for this. Moments later, a group of men in suits entered, led by the NASA administrator himself. Behind him came representatives from other space agencies, ESA, JAXA, even China's CNSA. You've really done it now, Musk, the NASA administrator said. But there was no anger in his voice, only resignation. No, Elon replied, looking around the chamber. You did this, all of you. Keeping these secrets, holding back human progress. We had our reasons. The Chinese representative interjected. The technology, it was too advanced, too dangerous. Dr. Wong stepped forward, her face tight with emotion. My father spent his life trying to understand what we found in the Gobi. He died believing humanity deserved to know the truth. The chamber's lights suddenly flickered. The strange craft in the center began to emit a low hum. They're here, Volkov announced, looking at his instruments. All around the world, they're making themselves known. The screen showed feeds from Times Square, the Eiffel Tower, the Great Wall, everywhere. People were looking up at impossible objects in the sky. There was no more hiding, no more secrets. It's your move, Mr. Musk, Volkov said, handing him back the file. You found the key. You opened the door. Now you get to make the choice. Elon looked around the room, at the space agency officials who had kept these secrets for decades, at Tom and Sarah who had helped him uncover the truth, at Dr. Wong whose father had died protecting this knowledge. No, he said finally, this isn't my choice to make. It belongs to everyone. He turned to the NASA administrator. How do we do this? How do we tell the world? The man sighed heavily. There's a protocol. We developed it decades ago, just in case this day ever came. The National Air and Space Museum, the ESA representative added. All the world's space agencies together. Complete transparency. Volkov nodded approvingly. They're waiting for us to take this step. They have been. For a long time. Above them, they could hear the sounds of helicopters landing. More officials, more witnesses to what was about to unfold. How long? Elon asked. We can be ready in for hours, the NASA administrator replied. Every major network, every online platform. Double quotes. Dr. Wong's instruments suddenly lit up again. The energy signatures, they're changing. It's like they're responding to our decision. Elon looked at the file in his hands, the file that had started all of this. The symbols were glowing brighter now, pulsing in rhythm with the humming craft in the center of the chamber. For hours, he agreed. But everything comes out, all of it, the Tunguska crash, the K-19 incident, the Gobi desert, everything. The officials exchanged glances, then slowly nodded. Decades of secrecy were about to end, sir. Tom called out from near the entrance. You need to see this. They all moved to the stairs, emerging from the underground chamber into the Moscow evening. The sky had cleared, and there, hovering silently over Star City, was a sight that left them speechless. Dozens of craft, some like the triangles they'd seen earlier, others like the disk in the chamber below. They formed a pattern that stretched across the horizon, visible to everyone. Phones were ringing everywhere now. Presidents, prime ministers, military commanders all demanding answers. But the truth was right there, impossible to deny any longer. The press conference, Elon said, his voice steady. We do it now. No more waiting. And so, as the sun set over Moscow, a convoy of vehicles departed Star City, heading for the airport. Within hours, they would stand before the world at the National Air and Space Museum, finally revealing the truth that had been hidden for so long. The space race hadn't been about reaching the stars. It had been about preparing for this moment, when the stars would finally reach back. Asterisk. The National Air and Space Museum buzzed with an energy unlike anything in its history. News vans clogged the streets of Washington, D.C., their satellite dishes pointing skyward where the strange objects continued their silent vigil. Over the city. Inside, final preparations were underway. The main hall had been transformed into a press center, with representatives from every major space agency seated in a long row, behind a podium adorned with a simple NASA logo. 5 minutes, Sarah whispered to Elon, who stood off to the side, reviewing his notes one last time. The file lay open before him, its pages now organized chronologically, from the first Tunguska discoveries to the recent events at SpaceX. Dr. Wong had helped arrange the technical documents, making sure even the most complex concepts could be explained to the public. Mr. Musk, a museum curator, approached, carrying something carefully wrapped in cloth. Dr. Volkov asked me to give you this, unwrapping it. Elon found a piece of twisted metal, unmistakably part of the Tunguska wreckage. The surface seemed to shimmer under the lights. Everything ready? The NASA administrator asked, approaching with the other agency heads. Almost, Elon replied. But there's one thing I don't understand. Why me? Why did Dmitry send the key to me? Dr. Volkov, who had been quietly observing nearby, stepped forward. Because you were the only one who never stopped looking up. The only one who kept pushing, despite what everyone said was impossible. The lights in the hall dimmed slightly, then returned to normal. Outside, the strange craft were moving into new formations. It's time, Tom announced from his position near the main doors. The hall had filled with journalists from around the world. Cameras were rolling, satellite feeds were live, and social media was exploding with speculation about the hastily called press conference. The NASA administrator took the podium first. His voice was steady as he began. For over 60 years, the world's space agencies have carried a secret. Today, that secret ends. He gestured to Elon, who stepped forward with the file. The cameras clicked furiously as he opened it, revealing the first photographs of the Tunguska craft. What you're about to see, and here will change everything we thought we knew about humanity's place in the cosmos. Elon began, but more importantly, it will change how we see ourselves. In the back of the hall, an elderly man stood with tears. In his eyes, one of the original Soviet engineers who had worked on the recovered technology. Beside him, others who had carried these secrets for decades watched as the truth finally emerged. As Elon spoke, showing photograph after photograph, document after document, the world held its breath. The K-19 incident, the Gobi Desert crash, the secret vault at SpaceX, it all came out. But it was the final revelation that stunned everyone into silence. They've been waiting. Elon explained, his voice carrying to every corner of the globe through countless broadcasts, waiting for us to stop looking at each other as enemies, to stop seeing the stars as something to conquer. They wanted us to be ready, not just technologically, but as a species. Above the museum, the craft began to pulse with light, their formations creating patterns that defied explanation. Inside, phones and cameras captured everything, broadcasting it to a world that would never be the same. As the truth about humanity's cosmic heritage was finally revealed, tears flowed freely, not just in the museum, but in homes and gathering places around the world. The greatest secret in human history was out, and with it came a promise of a future beyond anything they had imagined. The space race was truly over, but humanity's real journey was just beginning.